Good morning, and welcome to the online Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Urbana-Champaign. I am Sam Bashir, as a member of the Worship Committee, coming to you live from our sanctuary this morning. It is a beautiful, sunny morning on October 17th, the kind of day when you want to head out in shorts, sandals, and a nice warm sweater. We are a church of many theologies, a justice-centered, multi-faith congregation that values deeds above creeds, a religious community that strives to build beloved community in the here and now. You may be joining us today from across the world or from just down the street. Wherever you are, please know that this community, this service, is here for you in whatever form you find us. If you want to follow along with the written order of service, you can find that link just below this video or on our website. Today we welcome back Bill Breeden, formerly minister of UU Church of Bloomington, Indiana, and for a brief time our associate minister before the pandemic caused us to make other plans. As one of our practices together, each Sunday we begin with a land acknowledgement of the indigenous nations of this land. Wherever you are listening, please bring to mind the indigenous peoples of your place. There will be a moment of silence after this acknowledgement, and in that silence I invite you to consider something you might do beyond this honoring to make a difference for Native nations today. We recognize and acknowledge that we gather today on indigenous land taken through deception, coercion, and violence. We acknowledge the continued displacement and oppression of Native people and honor their commitments to survival, identity, and the protection of our world. Thank you. Today's opening words come from the Public Health Matters blog at the CDC in an entry called Preparedness 101, Zombie Apocalypse. There are all kinds of emergencies out there that we can prepare for. Take a zombie apocalypse, for example. That's right. I said zombie apocalypse. You may laugh now, but when it happens, you'll be happy you read this. The rise of zombies in pop culture has given credence to the idea that a zombie apocalypse could happen. In such a scenario, zombies would take over entire countries, roaming city streets, eating anything living that got in their way. The proliferation of this idea has led many people to wonder, how do I prepare for a zombie apocalypse? Well, we're here to answer that question for you, and hopefully share a few tips about preparing for real emergencies too. More information can be found on their website. As we light our chalice this morning, oh, wait a minute. I'm supposed to say, now we have our chalice lighting. And you can follow along with the words on your screen. And now we'll have the chalice lighting. As we light our chalice this morning, let us be mindful of all the gifts this world brings to us, and remember to be grateful and to not take them for granted.
Morning so fair to see, night veiled in mystery, glorious the earth and resplendent skies. songs we march along, singing our joyous song as though an earthly paradise. Tall are the verdant trees, deep are the flashing seas, glorious each wonder the seasons bring. Brighter is faith's surmise, shining in pilgrim eyes, from which our waking spirits spring. Age after age we rise, 'neath the eternal skies, into the light from the shadowed past. Still shall our pilgrim song, buoyant and brave and strong, resound while life and mountains last.
Good morning. I am Reverend Bill Breeden, and happy to be back here at Unitarian Universalist Church of Urbana-Champaign. And Theodore Barker is with me today. Say hi. Hello, folks. It's good to be back with you. Oh, look over there. Oh, hi, Glenda. Come on up here. Come on. Glenda is going to join us. Come on. Try to stand right over here. Oh, yes.
Hi, Theodore. You're all dressed up.
Oh, yeah, I get dressed up to come to Urbana.
So, you don't usually dress up like this?
No.
Okay.
I like to chase squirrels and not this outfit.
Okay, okay. And you probably haven't been wearing it as much during the pandemic.
No, I've been kind of laying around with jammies all the time.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. Like your red tennis shoes.
Oh, yeah, they're good for chasing squirrels.
My cousin wears red tennis shoes.
Squirrels.
My cousin wears red tennis shoes, and he makes me laugh a lot.
Well, we're going to try to do that too.
Laughing's good.
All right, look at that. How long have you been with this guy?
Oh, forever.
Ever.
Yeah, forever.
How many?
52 years.
Oh my goodness, that is forever.
That
I don't know how. Theodore. Let's move. All right, let's move on.
Okay. So you've been here before?
Yeah, we were here a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I was too. I love coming back to this space. It's such a beautiful space.
Absolutely gorgeous. I love that window over there.
Oh, right. Yes.
They call
And-
it the rose window.
Oh, wow. How do you know these things?
I've been here.
Well, I have too, but I don't remember things quite like that. So I miss Reverend Florence.
I miss Reverend Florence too. She's a cool lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like working with her.
So best wishes to Reverend Florence,
Yes.
if you're watching today or if you're not.
Reverend Florence.
Best wishes. Yes. So Theodore, during this pandemic, how have you kept in touch with your fellow dogs or people or whatever? Do you have special things that you've done?
Well, sometimes I Zoom. You ever Zoom?
I probably don't Zoom near as fast as you do.
It's cool.
Yeah. I don't like to Zoom, but you like to Zoom?
Oh, it's boom, man. It's boom.
It's okay.
Cool.
Okay, so the last time we were here, there were people everywhere. I mean, I don't think there was any standing room here the last time I was here. It was very crowded, and they were talking about going to 2 services. There were so many people. So it's just really different today, but I'm so glad that you are out there somewhere.
Oh, yeah, they're out there. They're in our hearts, too, right here.
Yeah,
right here.
Right here.
And we're in their hearts. Right?
So Theodore, what do you do to, I don't know, keep your spirits up when you're not seeing the other friends, dogs, people that you're used to seeing?
Chase squirrels.
Well, yeah, chase squirrels. You're always good at chasing squirrels. Anything else?
You know, one of the things that's most important
Yes.
is howling. You know, dogs howl. Yeah, they howl.
And coyotes.
Coyotes howl too, yeah.
We listen to coyotes.
And
Yes.
the moon is always listening. When it's up there, it's always listening for a howl.
Okay.
It's good for you. You want to howl?
Do I have to?
Yeah.
I have to howl here?
Hey, kids, If you're out there, get ready. We're going to howl. Everybody howl together, okay?
Well, so show me how first. I don't know if I can do that. No, but I'll do it the best I can, okay? So here we go.
You ready?
You start.
All right.
Okay.
You out there, you got to stand up and howl, kiddos.
Okay,
Get
here we
your
go.
mama and daddies up, your grandpas and grandmas and your aunts and uncles. Everybody howl. 1, 2, 3. Feel good.
It felt pretty good.
Makes you feel good all over.
And another thing that Bill and I do quite a bit, and I do with you too, we hug. We hug a lot. Do you hug? Do you like to be
I
hugged?
do like to hug.
You like to be hugged. So any advice to the folks out there?
If you're somebody who likes to be hugged, ask them. And everybody ought to hug each other right now. You want to hug? This is going to be a big group. U-C hug. 1, 2, 3, hug. Oh,
And
if you're out there all by yourself, hug yourself. It'll make you feel good all over more than anywhere else. Okay, ready? Hug. Hey, that's the way you do it. It's good to be back with you.
okay.
Y'all children have a great time, and it's a beautiful sunny day. Love y'all. See you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Each Sunday, we bring our individual joys, sorrows, and concerns to our time together. Please bring to mind the joys and sorrows in your life as we sing our blessing song. Please sing along or let it wash over you. There is still time to send in a joy or sorrow to be shared aloud. You will see the email address during the blessing song.
May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure, pure light that's within you guide your way home. May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure, pure light that's within you guide your way home. May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure, pure light that's within you guide your way home.
I have two joys this morning. First, from Pamela Van Wyk. It's a joy to have Bill Breeden back among us, even virtually. Also a joy to be outdoors and masked and singing with a choir again. And a joy from Tabitha Qualls. I have found a home within Unitarian Universalism. I have observed how you go about your services and immediately feel at ease here. Thank you. And Tabitha, we thank you also for sharing that. Sometimes email is delayed, so if I missed reading your joy or sorrow this morning, we'll be sure to print it in the e-news this week. We'll now have a song called A Horse Named Grace, written and performed by Glenda and Bill Breeden.
It's good to be with you. Glenda and I like to sing, like to play. And several years ago, actually, I was preaching at the Danville, Indiana UU congregation once a month. And I preached there one Sunday, and this elderly lady came up after church, and we were having communion downstairs, you know, the UU coffee hour, that's our communion. And so we were downstairs having coffee, and this elderly lady come up to me and she said, "Bill, I'd like to hear you preach a sermon on grace." I said, "Well," and Glenda said,
My grandpa had a horse named Grace.
"Well, that can't fell right into my lap." And so she said, I said, "Well, I'll do that next time." She said, "What's the title going to be?" And I said, "Well, it'd probably be A Horse Named Grace." And so on the way home, we wrote this song called A Horse Named Grace. And we'll sing it for you this morning. This song talks about storm clouds and thunder, and we're certainly going through some stormy weather in terms of being together and the whole pandemic, so the song works pretty well, I think, for our times.
Grandpa had a horse named Grace. Her back was strong and wide. We'd mosey through the fields of hay, pretending we could ride. But when she'd head back to the barn, she'd race with workhorse stride. We'd drop the reins and grab her mane and hang on for our lives.
Well, as we grew, we learned to roam and move from place to place. Every time we came back home was quite amazing grace. When storm clouds rose and thunder rolled and lightning burned the sky, we'd ride with grace above the wind and homeward we would fly.
When grace and love and peace abound, our hope can never die. We'll praise our lucky stars again, give thanks and wonder why. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved and set me free. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. When storm clouds rose and thunder rolled and lightning burned the sky, we'd ride with grace above the wind and homeward we would fly. When grace and love and peace abound, our hope can never die. We'll praise our lucky stars again, give thanks and wonder why. We'll ride with grace above the wind, and homeward we will fly.
I'd like to pause for a moment of silent meditation. Ask you, as my co-minister for 14 years at Bloomington used to always say, breathe, breathe, breathe. We'll pause for a moment of meditation in silence to be followed by an uncommon prayer. Let us be in silence together. Eternal Spirit of life, we send a voice in 4 directions to earth and sky, and in the name of all that is sacred in these gathered hearts, in this sanctuary, and in the broader sanctuary around the world, perhaps, where those are joining us online, and even those who are not joining us, but who hold peace and justice and grace in their hearts, we send a voice of thanksgiving for this day. Help us to remember who we are, even when we cannot gather together in person. Help us to remember that we are a community. Help us to remember to breathe in love, to breathe out love, and dispel hate and disharmony with song, with prayer, and with grace. We draw a circle around those who are sick, either in mind, body, or spirit this morning. We draw a circle around them and hold them in our hearts. And we all look to the day when we will join together again in person, for that day will surely come. But until then, we ask in our hearts for a horse named Grace, that we will walk with grace sacredly upon this earth, protecting it and preserving it for our children and grandchildren for 7 generations and beyond. In 4 directions, to earth and sky, and in the name of all that is sacred in our hearts, we do so send a voice. Blessed be. And now we'll have what we call in Bloomington an NPR moment. A little music by Juan Camacho. Thank you, Juan.
We, as Unitarian Universalists, acknowledge that we are part of the sacred web of life, the web of our connections with each other, with the wider community, and with the world. In the spirit of connections with each other, a reminder that we will have our online fellowship hour starting at 11:30, and also today, there is an opportunity for in-person gathering outside the church from 12:30 to 1:30. Also, in that spirit, each Sunday we share half of our Sunday offering with an organization in alignment with our UU values. During the month of October, we are supporting Dream House, DREAAM. Dream embraces and engages with dreamers as early as the age of 3, with a commitment to remain in their lives until they are 24. They work with children and young adults who need Dream the most. Please see our weekly e-news for more information about Dream House and other announcements and events. The offering will now be received. Please also enjoy Glenda and Bill's song, Breeden Signs, during this time.
So I wrote this song, it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago, when I was traveling from southeastern Indiana, where my parents live, back to where we live near Spencer, Indiana. And I was hating to leave them behind and trying to get my mind on something else as I drove along. And so I started jotting down signs that I saw, that whatever was written on stores or on street signs or whatever, I started jotting down these songs.
While you're driving.
While I was driving. I was careful.
Mm-hmm.
I was careful.
Tell that to the truck drivers, you run off the road.
And I had this melody going in my mind for a chorus. So when I got home, I put all these sign names and words together and wrote this song. So I think it would fit for, it's about Indiana, but I think it works really well for Illinois as well. Straw hats, fly spray, and saddlebags, sweet corn, tomatoes, and beans. Jesus is coming soon. There's an auction at noon and a poster of the 4-H queen. Yard sales, square bales, and fireworks, rabbits and chickens and straw. Holy Ghost, hog roast, God bless America, Boston vodka, strawberry ale. I'm alive and I'm well, I ain't worried about hell. I got heaven busted out all around me. Reading signs of all kinds with my windows rolled down, driving home on this Indiana highway. Stop signs, yield signs, and detours, bus stop and no passing zone. Farm sale, house to rent, road closed ahead, pay top dollar for gold. Chrysanthemums, melons, and peaches, zucchinis and blackberry jam. Brown eggs $2, old Avon bottles, never pay full price again. I'm alive and I'm well, I ain't worried about hell. Got heaven busted out all around me. Reading signs of all kinds with my windows rolled down, driving home on this Indiana highway. Cold beer to go, lay it down, let it go, let it in. Watch for ice on the bridge. School bus, turn around, beware of Doberman antiques. Catfish on Friday, the Bible's most helpful when open. Pay teachers, say no to drugs. Don't mow, don't spray, children at play. Some things you gotta take a stand on. Yeah, some things you gotta take a stand on. Find a Bible, put your right hand on. Pay attention to the signs, read between the lines, plant some daisies on the square that you land on. I'm alive and I'm well, I ain't worried about hell. I got heaven busted out all around me. Reading signs of all kinds with my windows rolled down, driving home on this Indiana highway.
I was lost there. I thought it said community matters. No, you're right. He already did that. It's good to be with you today. When I was asked to see if I could come over again, I had the option of doing this by, recording a sermon and sending it over here. But I just thought it'd be nice to be in the sanctuary again. I know that this place, this beautiful, beautiful sanctuary, means an awful lot to an awful lot of people, and surely an awful lot to those of you watching today. And I just decided I'd rather preach here than sitting at my table in the woods of Owen County, Indiana. Nothing ever works quite the way I planned them. Linda and I got everything ready to go last night and got in the car and came over, and we're staying at David and Claudia's house. And so last night I pulled out my sermon book here that I carry my sermons in when I'm preaching, and realized I brought the wrong sermon. And so after a few minutes of panic, I remembered that imperative to breathe, breathe, breathe. It'll be all right. And fortunately, Avalon, our wonderful tech person back there, was able to print some things for me so that I can at least see what you're seeing when you see them. And I appreciate the help with Avalon and with Sam. Thank you for working with me in the past few weeks while we figured this out. I'd like to show you slide number 1, please. This is the cover of the New Yorker, November 26, 2001, the day after Thanksgiving. October 7th marked the 20th anniversary of the beginning of what has been called America's longest war. I think Native Americans have reason to dispute that, because it's not the longest war, but it's the longest one in my lifetime and the longest one for the last century. In fact, the U.S., in its history from 1776 on, we have only known 17 years without war. Think of that, 17 years. It's all these years of American history that we were not at war with someone. 9/11/2001 was a horrible day. I remember where I was, as most Americans do. Most thinking Americans remember that day who were alive. I remember I was in our cabin in southern Indiana, and I was reading the Herald Telephone at that time, newspaper. It used to be a very good paper. And on the Nation and World section, there was a headline that said, U.S. airstrikes kill 8 Iraqi shepherds. I was reading that story about the civilian deaths when a friend of mine called and said, Breeden, turn on your TV, some nut just flew into the World Trade Center. And of course we found out it was not some nut, it was a terrorist attack. And if you were like me, you were glued to your television all day long. What went through my mind as the buildings collapsed was the words of Hosea in chapter 10, verses 10 through 12, where Hosea says, because you've trusted in the size of your chariots and the multitude of your warriors, therefore the tumult of war shall be upon all your people, and all of your fortresses will be destroyed. The United States, for many years, has pretended that the earth is flat militarily, that we can outsource our violence, push it out there, and it just goes off somewhere and falls off the edge of the flat earth. But in fact, the earth is round, as we know, as Captain Kirk proved this week he said. The earth is round, and violence, if you push away, comes back and bites you when it returns. That day, and certainly this month, from September through most of October, there have been constant reminders, never forget, never forget. You see it on banners, you see it on posters. And behind that word, really at this time, never forget is code word for never forgive. And I want to say that never forgiving means never healing. I spent much of my life with people in ministry, helping them to see that forgiveness is how we heal. Forgiveness is not for the offender. Forgiveness is for the offended. To be able to forgive is to be able to heal. We can never forget, that's sure. We will never forget watching human beings clasp hands and jumping off the World Trade Center where Glenda and I and our children had stood when they were small people before. We never forget, but we will learn that forgiveness brings healing. So on the cover of the New Yorker, November 26, you have American bombers, airplanes dropping turkeys on Afghanistan. And when I saw that, I was amazed. And then I saw an interview with Art Spiegelman, who drew that comic, and he asked that cover, and he asked the question, what would happen? What would happen if the United States started dropping food on Afghanistan? What would the world be like? We have spent in this war so far, it's now over, but in those years of war from 2001 to 2021, we spent already $2 trillion. And the total cost will be actually $6 trillion because we have done it on credit. Our Congress is always willing to increase the debt for war. It's always willing to borrow money to bomb, but they're not willing to borrow money to feed people, to house people, to care for hungry children, even in our own country. What would happen if we tried spending money feeding people? It's much more expensive to kill people, to bomb them, than it is to feed them. Peace is much cheaper than war. And it's a lesson we need to learn. We need to know. The cost of war stands now at $2 trillion, that war, and will go to $6 trillion by the time it's eventually paid off. Give me screen number 2, please. Dystopian Smorgasbord. When I began to think about this sermon, thinking about what dystopia means. Dystopia is an imagined state of society in which there's great suffering or great injustice. In the United States today, the numbers of homeless increase daily, increase yearly. We are the #1 incarceration nation in the history of the world. We incarcerate more of our people than any nation in the world ever has, percentage-wise, in terms of population. So I think we've been living in a dystopian nation for quite some time. This sign that you see now is a Venn diagram. It says you are here in the middle. And if you read those novels, 1984, Lord of the Flies, Fahrenheit 451, Animal Farm, The Matrix, Clockwork Orange, Logan's Run, Brave New World, Soylent Green, and The Handmaid's Tale. That's just a few of them. All of them I have read with the exception, well, Gattaca and Brazil, I understand, are films, which I have not seen yet. I hope to find them and watch them. And of course, The Matrix also was a film. But the rest of them are books that I've read, and if you haven't read them, I highly recommend you read them now. You'll seem like you're reading present history. There's some others I would encourage you to read. Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5 is one of the books that changed my life. Ursula Le Guin, The Left Hand of Darkness, The Dispossessed, 2 major books in my thinking. And Doris Lessing's Shikasta, it means the broken one, the broken earth. It's a history, basically a science fiction format, the history of our planet. And I highly recommend that, as well as the other series in her 5-volume science fiction series. Thinking about 1984 and particularly, and Brave New World. Neil Postman said in an article called Amusing Ourselves to Death, Public Discourse in the Age of Show Business. Neil Postman says this, Orwell feared those who would ban books. Huxley feared that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of our freedom, or deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much information that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared that the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared that we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy, the centrifugal bubble pumping. As Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, the civil libertarians and the rationalists who are ever on the alert to oppose tyranny fail to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. In 1984, Huxley said, people are controlled by inflicting pain, but in Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. In short, Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us, while Huxley feared that what we loved will ruin us. We've become a culture of triviality. How many people's on Facebook out there? I'm on Facebook. I've got over 3,000 friends now. I don't know where they all came from. I'm not sure how I got that many. But I comment on Facebook and I watch it. I limit the time to, I try to do at the most in one sitting half an hour, and I get up and do something else. And what I find is Facebook works on clickbait. You know what clickbait is? You see something, oh wow, I've got to share that, bang, and you click on it. And of course it's all figuring out algorithms, and so the Facebook figures out the ones you like the best and gives them to you. It's just trivial. It's just pleasure. We see things that agree with us all the time. Click, click, click that. And I make mistakes sometimes. I get one so good, I forget to read it carefully and I send it on. And thankfully I have some Facebook friends who remind me, you need to read that again. And sometimes they just remind me that what you just shared does not really fit with how they know I believe. And so we have to be careful about that. Don't get stuck in the clickbait cycle. Don't get stuck in irrelevance and trivia and just pleasure for the fun of it. William Golding, in his book, Lord of the Flies, says the shape of society must depend on the ethical nature of the individual and not on any political system, however apparently logical and respectful. It depends on my integrity. The shape of our society depends on my integrity, my ethics. It depends on your integrity and your ethics and how we live and how we walk every day, how we breathe, how we speak with people, how we share our ideas. You and me. That's what makes the shape of society, is our ethics. In The Handmaid's Tale, it's Margaret Atwood's book about a dystopian society where women become basically just child bearers and chattel for the men. And we're going back there. It seemed like a strange foreign book when I first read it years ago. It seemed like this is really impossible. But it's not impossible, it's Texas, where the Republicans are stripping away the women's control of their own body. It's The Handmaid's Tale all over. It's right there. In Indiana, the Republicans in the legislature in Indiana are now considering the Texas bill. We may get it introduced in our General Assembly this coming year. Give me slide number 3, please. Shane Claiborne, which I'll probably speak about a little bit later too, is a radical Christian. He posted this on Facebook. There are 120,000 U.S. children waiting for an adoptive family. There are over 3,500 in Texas alone. The average wait for a child in foster care to be adopted is 3 years. Imagine if every pro-life Christian cared as much about life after birth as life before birth. Margaret Atwood recently wrote, states that ban abortion should pay for free prenatal care, very expensive deliveries, health insurance, and the upkeep of the child after it is born. That's where the concern appears to stop with these people. Once you take your first breath, it's out the window with you. Who's going to pay for the orphans and the dead women? It's a form of slavery to force women to have children they cannot afford and force them to raise them. End quote. At the Pride Festival yesterday, I got into a fairly long discussion with a young preacher there. Several preachers were there preaching against homosexuality and against abortion. They had a PA system set up in Square, Spencer, Indiana. By the way, Spencer, Indiana has a great Pride Festival. It's the largest small town Pride Festival in the nation. It's the only town of under 10,000 people in our country with a Pride store on the square, on the courthouse square. It's a very active community and a very kind of it's hard to believe it's there in the middle of Owen County, Indiana, a strongly Republican county. But I got into a discussion with this young man who kept, saying he wanted to get us all saved and so forth. And I asked him, I said, what about a woman's right? What about, do you really believe that if you were a woman, or if you were a young girl, 15 years old, and raped by your father or your uncle or by anyone, that the state ought to make you carry that child to term? Do you really believe that? We talked at great length about that and many other biblical things. And the interesting thing happened at our Pride Festival was one person in our group, and there were literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in Spencer for the Pride Festival. And they began singing and shouting and singing songs and really drowning out the PA system on the courthouse from the preacher. But then one of them figured out how to hijack this. It was a Wi-Fi speaker. And she took her phone and hijacked the speaker with Lady Gaga. And so the preachers had to quit. They lost their station. Abortion has been around since recorded history. In the Roman Empire, abortion was common. Women had control of their bodies. They are the ones who knew they were pregnant. And they were the ones who knew how to end a pregnancy when it was not a good time to have a child. And yet, even in that day, as Jesus, we've got recorded words of Jesus, and I think they are true. I think the Sermon on the Mount, he didn't mention abortion at all. Never mentioned the word. Homosexuality was very prevalent in the Roman Empire. Jesus never one time mentioned homosexuality. And yet those two subjects have become the meat and potatoes of evangelical Christianity. And Jesus didn't say, what? Was he totally clueless? Was he ignorant of his own culture? Or was he concerned about justice, about love, about forgiveness, about being a community? Carlos Chapman posted recently, if a fetus is a person is 6 weeks pregnant, is that when the child support starts? Is that also when you can't deport the mother because she's carrying a U.S. citizen? And can I insure a 6-week fetus and collect if I miscarry? Just figuring, she says, if we're going to go here, we should go all in. I think she's got a point. Slide number 4. By the way, I told Sam Avalon, it's kind of dangerous to have a preacher that doesn't have a clock in front of him. And there's a clock back there, but it's stuck at 10 to 5. And so if I look at it to see how the sermon's going, I might be thinking that I'm in a time warp and I could just preach forever. But we'll run that risk, I suppose. This sign, just absolutely love this sign. Jesus, the name above all other names. Irony is lost in this movement. Irony is totally lost. As you can see, Jesus is not the name above all other names because there is Trump. We live in a post-hyperbolic world. I used to be called Mr. Hyperbole. But you can't be more hyperbolic than what you see like on signs like this. How ridiculous can it get? Slide number 5. I took this picture in Spencer, Indiana, a couple of weeks ago when they had a religious group had a festival there, and I might add that there was less than a fifth of the crowd at this festival than there were at the Pride Festival. I was glad to see the Pride Festival did well. Even if the Republicans had forced us off the courthouse lawn, we really still pretty much dominated the town of Spencer. But the sign says, Proud American Christians. And it's a fish, the sign of the early church, with an American flag in it. This sign is not only heretical from the Christian perspective, but it's also a violation of the legend of the flag. I mean, Kid Rock is not supposed to put the flag on his underwear. And we're not supposed to take the flag and use it in other ways except for the flag. That's clear with the legend of the flag. So this is not only heretical, it's absolutely unpatriotic. It's an insult to the American flag. Proud America. Have they not read the Bible that says clearly pride comes before a fall? Do they not understand that pride is a sin according to Christianity, according to the Bible? Proud America. Martin Marty, back in the 50s, a theologian at the University of Chicago, said this is not Christianity, it is American civil religion. And Sinclair Lewis is another book, It Can't Happen Here, one of the apocalyptic dystopian novels of the early 20th century. He says in here, when fascism comes to America, it will be carrying a cross and wrapped in a flag. You remember January 6th? One of the most shocking things, carrying a cross and smashing the windows of the U.S. Capitol with the cross and the American flag. Sinclair Lewis was writing prehistory. I found an old Turkish proverb a few weeks ago that said, the forest was shrinking, but the trees kept voting for the axe because the axe was clever and convinced the trees that because its handle was made of wood, it was one of them. In 2016, a pseudo-billionaire, con artist from Brooklyn, convinced the working class, the working poor of America, the mostly working white poor of America, that he was one of them. And we saw what happened in 2016, and it's going to be tried again. We need to be understanding of this. We need to be understanding of this, and we can't, it doesn't work to just hate them. We need, as liberal, progressive people, to understand where it's coming from. Next slide, please. Is this a James Baldwin, right? Thank you, Avalon. I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate, said James Baldwin, so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain. There's an awful lot of pain in our society. There's an awful lot of promises that have not been kept. They've not been kept because we spend more money killing people than feeding people. They've not been kept because China is stealing our jobs. It's because corporations are taking our jobs away. And there's a lot of pain out there. And so hate is easy. Hate covers up the pain. And hanging on to hate allows us not to deal with the pain. Baldwin also said, one must say yes to life and embrace it wherever it is found. And it is found in terrible places. Nevertheless, there it is. For nothing is fixed. Forever and forever and forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down the rock. Generations do not cease to be born. And we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises. The light fails. Lovers cling to each other. And children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out. That's from James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time. Hate is easy, love is hard. Dystopia means a place of injustice and suffering. Utopia actually literally means no place. There is no utopia. There's another Greek word called oitopia, and that means possible place. And that's what I think we as Unitarian Universalists, we as progressives, need to focus on, a possible place where children are given child care, are given education, where mothers and fathers are given a way to make a living and not spend all of their hours in labor, but to have leisure as well. That is an oitopia. That's quite possible. But it will not be possible until we learn how to share the resources of this earth. Finally, a reminder back to clickbaiting and so forth. My last slide. Obviously, a New Yorker cartoon. You recognize it without the sight. I think you will find this wine to be quite infuriating. I saw this cartoon and I just laughed. Cartoons rarely make me laugh out loud, but this one did. Because, in fact, when I fail to be who I am, when I fail to follow what I believe on clickbaiting, sometimes I hit this will really take them off. That's what I want to do with the bowl sitting at the table. Do I want to infuriate it? Or do I want to somehow or another calm its fears, calm its anger? And I'm glad to say that there are people who remind me of that often. The good news is that we are all in this together, all of us. We're not all in the same boat. Some of us are in dugout canoes in a hurricane. Some of us are hanging on to the last piece of wood in the flood. And some of us are in great ships. We need to understand that we're all in the same water. We're all on the same planet. And this is the only planet I have. This is the only planet we have. And I want to say, I am not despairing these days. I lectured at DePaul University a week or so ago, 2 classes, and I was amazed at the involvement of the students. And when I was there to talk about capital punishment, having been minister of record for a man who was executed this past January, and to talk with them about what the death penalty really is like. And I was amazed at the involvement of these students. I was amazed at their concern for our country, not just for our country, but for the planet on which they live. The younger generation may come back and help us redeem our country and our world, because they know that my generation lost it. The hippies went to yuppies and everything went up. The money went to the top and it stays there. And we gave up on those hippie values. And I wasn't a hippie. What's my brother called, an aftermarket hippie. When the hippies were around, I was back there preaching in revivals. And then I realized the hippies were right. Love is the most important thing in the world. Peace is one of the most important things in the world. Those are the ways of our lives. That's what our lives should value and our lives should be about. As I said, we're all on the same planet. We're all in the same sea. We need to swim together or we'll drown together, as to paraphrase Martin Luther King. Our closing hymn will be sung, and you can sing along with it. It kind of uses a phrase that Baldwin did. We must say yes to life. Our closing hymn. Blessed be.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love. I think we're good.
It's been an honor to be with you by virtuality or whatever it's called. It's been an honor to be back in the sanctuary, and I give you all thanksgiving for inviting me to come. I encourage you to breathe, breathe, breathe. And I encourage you, as that last song said, may it be said about you, I said yes to life. May it be said about you. When they ask, let them say, he said, he, she, they said yes to life. Blessed be.
I'm glad we didn't get the right sermon because the one we got was terrific. Thank you, Bill. We extinguish our chalice with these shared words written by Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Elizabeth Selly Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen.